Welcome to episode 46 of the FPS RPG tutorial. I've got a treat for you guys today. This one is going to be tricky, and even then, it's still the introduction of introductions to a very complicated topic. I am, of course, referring to animations. To start with, we're going to need some content from Epic Games. From the Epic Games launcher, go to Unreal Engine, and up the top here, click on Learn. Not Marketplace, Learn. This content is inside of the Learning segment. And once you're there, scroll down until you get to the Games section right here. What you're going to want is this shooter game right here. Now, once you've added that to your library, to go and download it, click on your library and find the shooter content here. You can see all the free content that I've got from the Epic Games Marketplace here, which I alluded to at the beginning of this tutorial series. Scroll down until you get to shooter game, and here you'll go create project, like you can see here. I've already created the project, so you can see that the little yellow arrow to the right is already filled in, and I've cached a size of 1.8 gigs. So I'm hoping that you can download 1.8 gigs of content, and even though we're only going to be using a small segment of it, it's still a fascinating demo. And I'll see you in that demo once you've downloaded it. Once the demo's downloaded, it should appear here in My Projects. Double click and open it up. And once you get started, you'll be greeted with this here. Feel free to click play and enjoy all the things inside this demo. There are lots of concepts being explored here, such as level design and creation. And if you were to hit play, you'd be greeted with a first-person character holding a weapon with a HUD. Not too unfamiliar to what we're doing now. I'm going to stop talking for when I hit play and show you a quick demo of that in case you're watching ahead while you let that download in the background, so you can see what it looks like, but I'll just mute the audio in case there is some copyright thing there. So once you've played the demo for yourself, you'll hear that there's a lot of sound effects, but more importantly, there are animations going on. We're going to grab these animations and this skeleton here for the sake of our tutorial. And I'm going to show you how to rig it all up, but in doing so, I also want to show you what you'd need for your own game. To make this work, go over to Animations in the content browser here of this project. We have two folders. There is FPP and TTP. Click on the FPP animations. Select all the animations in here by holding Control and pressing A, or you can drag and drop if you want. Right click on any of them while they're all selected. Go to Asset Actions and click Migrate. And it's going to not just give you these animations, but everything that you need for these animations to function. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff here. It's much more complicated than just an animation. We also have skeletons. We also have materials and textures. We also have a bunch of sound effects which are tied into those animations too, which I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you how to add your own. And we're going to bring it over to our project. Keep everything selected here, press OK. And here you're going to go to your project folder. I'm already in a project folder, but your Unreal Projects folder, as you can see here, I'm going to put mine in Tutorial FPS or whatever you've named your project. And inside of that, go into Content and select this folder. It should say content migration completed successfully, and make sure you're doing this in the same version of Unreal Engine, whatever version you're using. If you're following this tutorial, it should still be 4.24.3. So here we are back in our project. You can close the other project. We don't need that anymore. And you should notice that there are a bunch more folders on the left in your content folders that have popped up. Particularly, we have more in sounds. We have our animations folder, and we have a characters folder. To begin with, we're going to open up our B_hero. And inside of B_hero, we're going to go to the viewport, add a component with nothing selected. We're going to get a skeletal mesh. It's up to you what you want to call it. I'm not going to give it a name for now. With the skeletal mesh, we're going to attach it to the camera because we want this to follow the movements of our camera. Now, with the skeletal mesh selected, pop over to the right where you see skeletal mesh, and we're going to get Hero FPP. This is one of the assets we brought over. This is what the arms actually look like. And that's right, they're just a set of arms. In a lot of games, when you're playing as a first-person character, you'll only have a set of arms. Sometimes you'll get some feet. You definitely won't be getting a head because the camera is the head, and if there was a head, the camera would be in the way. Then if you have another player in that game, you'll be seeing them as a third-person character. That's getting into the way that multiplayer maps work and multiplayer games, and how you can see one thing but the other player sees another is a whole nother can of worms. But for now, let's go based on the fact that when you are the player, you will see those arms, and when you see another player, you will see a third-person representation of them. So for this purpose, we're only going to be using those arms. Now let's start by getting these arms in place. These are some figures I was playing with before. You can copy these or find your own. -90 is definitely the way to go on the Z-axis though, so that the arms are facing the right way and all the animations will be playing in the right direction. And I'm going to leave mine there for now. To get these arms out of their A pose, which is another version of a T pose, we're going to need an animation blueprint, or essentially a blueprint that will tell the arms what to do. And you can see here, we have that option to either select one asset, use animation asset, or select an entire blueprint. We don't have a blueprint for this yet, so let's go and create that. Compile and save this, and go over to the test map again. Let's go to the animations folder, and here let's right click, and under animation, let's select an animation blueprint. The first thing we're going to need for an animation blueprint is a skeleton. Down here is a list of all the skeletons we have. All of our weapons are actually skeletons because they have moving parts inside of them, courtesy of the creator of the pack. And so the reload animation, say for our assault rifle, actually has that magazine moving. That's a moving part, thus it warrants a skeletal mesh. Let's select the Hero FPP skeleton, click OK. And we'll call this AB for animation blueprint _ hero. Double click on that and open it up. Let's drag that tab to the top. And we're greeted with this screen here. So this output is what's going to essentially plug the animation blueprint into the actual skeleton to do things. So we need to plug something into it. We're going to plug in what's called a state machine. Think of everything that your character can do as a state. When your character is standing still, it's a state. When they're running, it's a state. Allow me to demonstrate. Right click and type in new state machine, which is going to create a machine for determining what our states are. With this state machine, let's name it first and call it locomotion, because this state machine is going to drive how the arms determine what animation to play based on movement. So let's plug that in and double click on locomotion. Here we are in our state machine. So our state machine is going to refer to specific animations. And if we click on the asset browser here, we can see a list of all the animations specifically designed for this set of arms or skeleton. So other animations such as the assault rifle animation wouldn't work with this. And Unreal Engine is smart enough to know to only give you the animations that work with this skeleton. We're going to start by dragging an animation in. The first animation is going to be FPP _ rifle idle. So let's drag that in. And this is a state. Drag off the entry point and plug in rifle idle. And there's our first state. So when we start playing the game, our arms will assume this position. And if we were to hit compile, we can see that here. If we go over to B _ hero, let's select that animation blueprint here. And you can see those arms have kicked in already. We'll come back to adjust the weapon because it's not in its right place right now. Let's continue on with the animation blueprint. The first thing that could potentially happen when we start playing the game is we move. Luckily for arms, that's a pretty simple animation. We don't need a move left, move right for these arms. We just need one to simulate movement. So for this animation, select FPP _ rifle run. To go from this animation to this animation, we have to tell the animation blueprint how to make that decision. If we drag a line from one animation to the other, we get this little symbol here. If we open it up, we can see here that the result is looking for a Boolean. This brings us to the other half of our animation blueprint, the event graph within the animation blueprint. This works a little bit differently to the stuff that we've been doing previously, in that we are actually relying on a tick, something that updates every frame, to create these animations. So rather than making an event and calling that event once, we are constantly updating this to make sure that we are playing the right animations. To begin with, we're going to create a casting, and already you can see the first difference. Instead of using get player character, we're going to use try get pawn owner. Let's drag off of that and type in cast to b_hero. And we'll plug that executable in there. If we compile, we can see that this orange line is firing off, as if to say this is what would be happening within the actual game. So the first thing we'll check is if we're moving. To essentially turn whether we're moving or not into a Boolean, we need to get another value. So let's get velocity. Vector length. Vector length will turn this into a float. And the way to turn our float into a Boolean would be check if the float is above or below a certain value. So we're going to check if this float is above 0.1. Because I'm on PC at the moment, when I press W, I'm essentially switching a Boolean on to go forward or to go backward. But we will be coming back to adjust the speed of this so that if you were using a controller with a thumbstick, you could adjust the speed. For now, this is just going to be a switch. So now we need to save this Boolean, and if we come down here, we can create variables particular to this blueprint. Let's call this is moving. And then let's hold Alt and drag that in and connect the end there. Now with that connected, let's pop over to that transition with this tab up here. If you lost that, you just need to go from your state machine and double click on this icon here. Let's drag over is moving onto that transition. So if we are moving, we can go from that animation to the next animation. Compile and save that, and we should have the tick of approval. However, we also need to tell the blueprint what to do when we stop moving. So let's drag another connection back over to idle. Double click on that and drag is moving in, but this time let's put a knot there. So if we are moving, we'll go into the run animation. If we're not moving, we will exit the run animation and return to idle. Compile and save that, and if we were to go over to the test map and hit play, we can see that our arms are indeed moving. And if I was to walk, you can hear those sound effects playing as well, which I'll show you where they're playing from in just a moment. And if I was to stop moving, we return. So that animation blueprint is indeed working. Don't worry about it if your gun isn't lined up with your hands as well as mine. I will show you how to get to those values.